Amelia sat on the edge of her bed, her hands tightly clasped together. The soft morning light spilled through the thin curtains, falling across the wooden floor of her small bedroom. Birds chirped outside, but their cheerful song seemed distant and hollow to her. She felt trapped, caught between the life she wanted and the life her family expected her to lead. All her life, Amelia had followed rules she didn't choose. She had studied hard, helped with chores, and smiled politely at neighbors and relatives. But now, everything felt different. Today, she was to meet the man her parents had chosen for her, a stranger she was supposed to marry. The thought made her stomach churn and her heart pound. She could hear the soft voices of her parents downstairs, speaking in low tones about preparations. They didn't notice the knot of anxiety in her chest. Amelia had tried to speak before, to say that she wanted to make her own decisions, but every time she opened her mouth, her words caught in her throat. Her family's traditions were strong, and any protest seemed like rebellion. Tears pricked her eyes as she thought of the future she had not chosen. She imagined a life with a man she barely knew, living in a house filled with expectations she could never fulfill. She thought of the freedom she longed for, the ability to make even small choices for herself, what to wear, where to go, who to trust. But all of it had been taken from her. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Amelia flinched and wiped her cheeks, hoping her parents wouldn't notice her tears. "Amelia, are you ready?" her mother called softly. She took a deep breath and nodded, though her throat felt tight. "I'm ready," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Downstairs, the house was already filled with quiet activity. Her father adjusted his tie, and her mother fussed over small details, arranging flowers and plates for guests. Amelia followed them silently, feeling like an actor in a play she had never agreed to perform in. When she stepped outside, the morning air was crisp and fresh, but it did little to calm her. Her heart raced as she saw the man her parents had chosen waiting at the end of the path. He smiled politely, but his eyes were unfamiliar, like a face from a painting she had never seen. Amelia forced a polite smile back, but it felt strained and hollow. I don't know if I can do this," she whispered to herself as she turned to walk with her parents. The words were barely audible, but her heart poured them out. Her mother stopped and looked at her with gentle concern. "Amelia, this is important. You must show respect," she said softly. "Your family has done what they think is best for you." Amelia nodded, but inside, her chest felt heavy. She couldn't explain the fear that had settled there. The fear of losing herself entirely, of living a life decided by someone else. As the introductions were made, the man smiled again, extending a hand politely. Amelia shook it, feeling the tension in her own hands. They exchanged brief, polite words, but she could feel the walls closing in around her. Every smile felt forced, every laugh hollow. She wanted to run, to escape, but where could she go? Her family, her town, the traditions, they were everywhere. After a few minutes, she excused herself and walked to a quiet corner of the garden. She sat on a bench beneath a large oak tree, trying to calm her thoughts. But the tears came anyway, slipping silently down her cheeks. "I don't want this," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't want a life I didn't choose. Why can't anyone understand?" Her words hung in the air, but there was no one to hear them. She felt completely alone, trapped by expectations that seemed impossible to escape. She wanted to be brave, but the fear inside her felt heavier than any courage she had. It was then that she saw him, Caleb, the cowboy. He was leaning against the fence at the edge of the property, watching her with calm, steady eyes. Amelia had known Caleb since she was a child. He had grown up on the ranch nearby, strong, quiet, and kind. He didn't speak much, but when he did, his words carried weight. Caleb walked over slowly, his boots crunching on the gravel path. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her on the bench, giving her space but showing he was there. Amelia looked at him, unsure if she wanted to speak, unsure if anyone could understand how she felt. "You're crying," Caleb said finally, his voice gentle. "You don't have to hide it." Amelia wiped her cheeks quickly, embarrassed. "I can't marry him. I don't even know him. And I've never been allowed to make my own choices. I don't want this life." Caleb nodded slowly, listening carefully. "I understand," he said. "I've known you long enough to see that you're strong. You don't belong to anyone but yourself." His words struck her like a small beam of light in a dark room. For the first time that morning, she felt seen, truly seen, by someone who understood her heart. She took a deep breath and let a few more tears fall, feeling a strange mixture of relief and fear. "You can't just tell me this," she said softly, almost to herself. "I've been told my whole life what to do. How can I suddenly be free?" Caleb smiled faintly, a mix of warmth and seriousness in his eyes. "Freedom isn't given, it's taken. And sometimes, you just need someone to remind you that it's yours. From now on, you'll choose everything." Amelia blinked, unsure if she had heard him correctly. His words were bold, almost impossible, but they carried a promise she hadn't felt before. A promise that she could make her own decisions, that she didn't have to live someone else's life. I don't know if I can," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You can," Caleb said firmly. "You've been strong your whole life, following rules and pleasing everyone. Imagine what you could do if you followed yourself for once." Amelia thought about it. The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. She had never made a major decision on her own. Every choice had been decided by others. Her clothes, her schedule, her friendships. Now, for the first time, someone was telling her that she could decide for herself. The bell from the church across the street rang, reminding her of the meeting that was still waiting. The man her parents had chosen. The life that seemed so predetermined. She felt the fear tighten in her chest again. But then she looked at Caleb, at his steady gaze, and felt a spark of courage ignite inside her. I want to try," she said quietly. "I don't want to live a life I didn't choose." Caleb nodded, a small smile forming. "Then, start small, one choice at a time. You don't have to change everything at once, but today, take the first step. Say what you feel. Stand for yourself. That's where it begins." Amelia took a deep breath, feeling a strange mix of fear and hope. She realized that this was the first moment in her life where she could take control, even if it was just a little. She didn't have to surrender to tradition entirely. She could honor her family while still claiming her own voice. The rest of the morning passed in a blur. Amelia returned to her family, meeting the man with polite smiles and careful words. But inside, something had shifted. She no longer felt completely powerless. She carried Caleb's words like a small shield in her chest, a reminder that she had a right to make her own choices. By the time the sun was high in the sky, Amelia felt a strange calmness she hadn't known before. She wasn't entirely free yet. There were still many obstacles ahead, but she had begun to step into her own life. And for the first time, she believed that maybe, just maybe, she could truly choose her own path. The next few days passed in a strange mixture of anxiety and excitement for Amelia. She moved through her routine, completing chores and attending family gatherings, but everything felt different now. She carried Caleb's words with her like a secret power. "From now on, you'll choose everything." Each time she remembered them, a spark of courage flickered inside her. At first, the changes were small. She began making little decisions for herself, choosing what to wear in the morning, instead of her mother picking the clothes for her, deciding when to take breaks from work, and even choosing which path to take when walking through the town. These small acts felt revolutionary, like stepping into sunlight after living in shadows. Her parents noticed, of course. They exchanged worried glances when Amelia politely refused certain chores or suggested alternatives. Her mother tried to gently persuade her to follow tradition, saying, "Amelia, people expect certain things of us. It's easier to go along." But Amelia smiled softly and replied, "I know, Mama, but I need to find my own way. I need to choose for myself." Her father shook his head but said nothing. There was tension in the house, but Amelia felt a strange sense of relief. She realized that standing up for herself didn't have to be loud or dramatic. It could be quiet and steady, like water slowly wearing away stone. One afternoon, she found herself wandering to the edge of Caleb's ranch. The sunlight glinted off the fences, and the wide-open fields stretched far beyond what she could see. Caleb was there, repairing a gate, his hands working skillfully. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "You're here again," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Amelia laughed softly, a sound that felt lighter than it had in months. "It's strange," she admitted. "I feel like I'm learning how to be myself for the first time." Caleb nodded. "It's not easy, but it's worth it. Every choice you make is a step toward living your own life." They walked together through the fields, talking about small things, horses, weather, neighbors, but underneath the casual conversation, Amelia felt a deep reassurance. Caleb wasn't telling her what to do. He was showing her that she had the power to decide. His presence made the idea of independence less frightening. Days turned into weeks, and Amelia grew bolder. She started saying no when something didn't feel right, like declining visits from distant relatives who demanded her attention. She also began pursuing her own interests, reading books she loved, sketching in the evenings, and learning to ride a horse under Caleb's patient guidance. Each small choice added to her confidence. Of course, it wasn't all smooth. There were moments of doubt and fear, especially when her family expressed frustration. Her mother sometimes sighed and said, "Amelia, life isn't always about what you want. You have duties." Amelia would take a deep breath, steady herself, and reply, "I understand, Mama, but I also have the right to live my own life." The words still felt foreign in her mouth, yet each time she spoke them, they grew stronger. One evening, Caleb brought a blanket and suggested they sit outside to watch the stars. Amelia hesitated at first, worried about how her parents would react, but then realized that small acts of freedom were exactly what she needed. As they lay on the blanket, looking up at the vast sky, Amelia felt a sense of calm she had never known. The stars seemed endless, each one a reminder that the world was bigger than her fears. "I never thought I could feel this free," she admitted softly. Caleb turned to her, his face calm and reassuring. "Freedom isn't something you are given. It's something you claim. And you're claiming it beautifully." Amelia smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She realized that reclaiming her life wasn't about rejecting her family or tradition, it was about finding a balance where she could honor her roots while also honoring herself. The turning point came a few days later, when her parents tried once again to arrange her marriage. This time, Amelia felt a calm determination that surprised even her. She politely, but firmly, refused. "I cannot marry someone I do not know," she said. "I need to live my own life and make my own choices." Her parents were stunned. Her father's face was a mixture of shock and disbelief, while her mother's eyes glistened with unshed tears. For a long moment, there was silence, heavy and tense. Then Caleb stepped forward, placing a steadying hand near Amelia but not touching her. "She is right," he said quietly. "She has the right to decide her own future. We all have to let her make her own choices." It wasn't easy for her parents to accept, but seeing Caleb's calm confidence and Amelia's determination, they gradually began to understand. Her mother, still hesitant, said, If this is truly what you want, Amelia, I will try to support you. Amelia felt a mixture of relief and gratitude. It wasn't a perfect victory, her parents still had doubts. But it was a start. She realized that claiming her life was not a single moment of triumph. It was a series of small, courageous steps. With her family beginning to respect her choices, Amelia felt a new sense of possibility. She spent her days learning, exploring, and planning for her future. She found joy in simple things, preparing her favorite meals, spending time with Caleb and the ranch animals, and taking quiet walks in the open fields. Each choice, no matter how small, reminded her that her life was hers to live. Caleb remained a quiet, steady presence. He never told her what to do or tried to control her decisions. Instead, he offered guidance when she asked, and encouragement when she doubted herself. His support gave her strength, and over time, Amelia began to see him not just as a friend or mentor, but as someone who understood her completely and believed in her courage. One afternoon, Amelia decided to take a longer walk into the nearby hills. The sun was warm on her face, and the wind carried the scent of wildflowers. She thought about her journey, the fear, the tears, the small victories, and the support she had received. For the first time, she felt proud of herself. Proud of the choices she had made and the courage she had discovered. When she returned to the ranch, Caleb was waiting, leaning against the fence. He smiled as she approached. "You're glowing," he said softly. Amelia laughed, a sound full of relief and happiness. "I feel like I'm finally alive," she admitted. "Like I've been asleep for so long, and now I'm waking up." Caleb nodded, his eyes kind. "That's the power of choosing for yourself. It's not always easy, but it's always worth it." As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the fields, Amelia realized that her journey was far from over. There would still be challenges, moments of doubt, and difficult decisions to make. But she also knew something vital. She was no longer a passenger in her own life. She was the driver, and every step forward was a step she had chosen. That evening, as she sat quietly in her room, Amelia reflected on everything she had learned. She thought about the fear she had felt on the morning of the arranged meeting, about the tears she had shed under the oak tree, and about Caleb's unwavering support. She realized that freedom was not just about escaping obligations, it was about embracing her own voice, trusting her instincts, and believing in her worth. Amelia smiled, a soft, genuine smile that reached her eyes. For the first time, she felt at peace. She knew that she could face whatever came next because she had discovered the strength inside herself. And with Caleb by her side, not to lead her but to support her, she felt ready to embrace life fully, on her own terms. The story didn't end with dramatic fireworks or grand declarations. Instead, it ended with a quiet triumph. A young woman who had learned to stand for herself, who had reclaimed her voice, and who had discovered the courage to choose her own path. The future was still uncertain, but for Amelia, it was bright with possibility, because finally, she was the author of her own life.